Imagine a world without Aventus dupes. Is that a better world? Probably. And that's exactly the world Symrise wants to create using Cryptosym. They literally want to encrypt their fragrances so that nobody can copy them. But to understand how it actually works, first I need to explain to you what is GCMS. GCMS, which stands for gas chromatography mass spectrometry, is a technique used to separate a liquid, for example, perfume, into its volatile components. Volatile meaning stuff that evaporates, basically. So the gas chromatograph works by heating up the fragrance until it evaporates. And these vapors, they're carried through long, thin tubes, which are coated with specific molecules that interact with these vapors, and they kind of stick to them. And in the end, the molecules of the vapors get out of the tube at separate times. So let's say, if we imagine a pyramid, the citrus molecules would go out first, then you would get your incense, musks at the very end, some sandalwood molecules, some ambroxan, whatever, all that stuff. It just gets out of the tube at separate time intervals because they get kind of held up in these tubes. Once we get the array of molecules out of the tube, we get to the mass spectrometer, which essentially blasts them with energy to get a pattern of electrons within it. So essentially you get a signature that is being recorded on paper or digitized in the computer. And using this information, we can get a pretty good view on what the fragrance actually consists of on a molecular level. Obviously, the devices, they cost like tens of thousands of dollars, but you can buy them. Hell, I could go right now to a dealer and buy one for myself. The fact of the matter is, there are houses that specialize in taking fragrances, running them through the GCMS, substituting some of the more expensive materials to something that smells roughly the same but is much cheaper. Or, for example, there are captive molecules, right? So the big houses, they have molecules that only they can use because they patented them. Because they patented them. And that's a whole different topic we could talk about, but not today. In fact, I'll say even more. There's a saying that the first 100 customers of your new fragrance are your competitors. Everyone knows everything. Givaudan, Firmenich, Symrise, all the Dior's, Chanel's, Guerlain's, they have specific sections of the company to literally just run fragrances through the GCMS and figure out what they're made of. And that's where Cryptosym comes in. From what I gather, it's a colorless, odorless liquid that gets out of the gas chromatograph at roughly the same times as the actual smelly molecules. And that kind of screws things up during the mass spectrometry. So it will probably increase some peaks that you wouldn't expect for the molecule, or add some new peaks, and it will make the picture kind of muddled. You won't really know what exactly it is if you go just by the paper without much analysis. Is it going to work? Probably yes, and probably for some time as well, especially if they keep switching things up. The first news of it I heard is in 2022, and publicly it seems that there's only one fragrance made with this tech. Victoria Secret Bare EDP. So either they're keeping silent about any new fragrances using this tech, which makes sense obviously, because they don't want to give it away as easily, or they are not using it for some reason, which is less likely. Overall, I think it can be worked around, especially once we know the signature of these molecules in the Cryptosym base, and especially once AI comes into play. And it will take time to get there, but right now it still can be circumvented. You just take a perfumer, they take their nose, put it near to the tube that gives the vapors, and you just sniff it. The base, as I said, is odorless, so it will not screw things up for you as a perfumer. So if you know your craft well, you will know these molecules, and you will just sniff it and say, okay, this is that. It just raises the bar a little bit higher. But it doesn't address the root of the problem, which is there's a bunch of companies with expensive, or sometimes not so expensive, formulas that they're trying their best to keep a secret, despite the fact that anyone with some expendable cash can get the formulas. Just get the molecules, put it in the GCMS, and you get it. And obviously they will not copyright their formulas, because then you would actually need to write it down and send it out somewhere. So there's a bunch of companies that would rather use smoke and mirrors, put a veil on customers' eyes, instead of just revealing what they are actually using. But it leaves out the people that matter the most, I think. It leaves out the customers, the people who should know what they're putting on their skin. If you want a fragrance and you care about the marine life, for example, you wouldn't want a fragrance to contain any galaxolide. And unless there's some regulation, which there is something in the works, thank you to EU, Green Deal, things won't be revealed. So what I wanted to say with all of this is, cool tech, in the larger scheme of things, probably doesn't matter that much. And, well, big companies, please be more open about your fragrances. It would be very highly appreciated by the indie perfumers and customers. Please.